Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are you all this fine morning? Let's get this technology of mine set up for you. There we are. Let's check the sound. Are you hearing me well? Am I being heard well? Let's check each of these devices. We're going to have a fantastic show today. Properly, that's fine. All looking good. All looking good. All right, let me take down this music now. Here we go. And I think we're ready. I think we are ready. This is the Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. How are you? How are you? Huh? How are you? Huh? We'll be joined shortly by Empress Abner. Don't you worry, she'll be here with us soon. Don't you worry. But more importantly, I want to thank the previous presenter on GalaxyAffiliate.net, to Ian King, who has taken us, of course, from night to day. Well done to Ian King, and of course to the Galaxy management. Let's give a big shout out to them all and recognize stalwarts of the community. GalaxyAffiliate.net, more than 40, nearly 40 years old. I'll say more than, nearly 40 years old, because it's 1983, yes? Nearly 40 years old. So long may that work continue. Long may that work continue. But of course, this show, not only is it transmitted live via GalaxyAffiliate.net, but we're also transmitting live via Facebook and YouTube under The Motivator Show. Oh, let me spell that for you. DE space Motivator space Show. The Motivator Show under YouTube and Facebook. So you can see, both hear and see my persona. Huh? How about that for you? There you are. Do you see my fingers? Oh yes. Oh, and of course, the audio transmission is also going through to Mixcloud as well under the Motivator Show banner. So we are going out in multi-platform around the globe, around the world, and we're going to make an impression as we have to date. Okay? This will be a fantastic show. Okay? There's some disappointment, but I'll explain that later on. More importantly, what I want to focus on is the future. How we can create an outstanding future for ourselves. Yeah? Focus, determination, relentless pursuit for success. Personal, family, community, global success for all of humanity, not just ourselves. It'd be very lonely with just ourselves, wouldn't it? We'll somewhat restrict our gene pool. Huh? There you go. I want to now move on to a part of the show which has clearly received significant acknowledgement. And that's, of course, the no longer health, but lifestyle messages. I am astonished the number of congratulations and recognitions I've received this past week. And it runs into just over a few thousand. I'm amazed. I'm amazed. Huh? I can't give you the exact figure. I haven't counted them all, but I can assure you it's over 2,000. Okay, I'm astonished. I've been giving out the lifestyle messages ever since the start of my transmissions here. Okay. And, in the early days, it was rather rocky road, as some of you be aware. Challenges as to why I do it. It's unnecessary. You're just doing it for your ego and so on and so on and so on. Yeah. What is quite clear? What is quite clear? That if there were parts of our community that were asleep, or indeed in denial, that is most certainly not the case today. And I'm pleased not only are members of the other Galaxy pilots doing a similar format to myself, okay, but I see across the media in our community that this is so as well. In recognition that there is no good reason why there should be above average levels of diabetes, hypertension, cancers, lung conditions, and obesity in our community. And as an elected public official, you understand. I've seen the figures, and they make for, and I say it again, truly uncomfortable reading. And therefore, it's incumbent upon me, incumbent upon us all, to share these lifestyle messages to our loved ones, to our families, to our networks of friends and associates and wider communities. It's important. We have a duty to ourselves to share what is, yes, simply common sense information. So we'll go straight into it because there's a lot I want to get through today. I'll go straight into it because this is a part of the program which I want, and I urge the audience to pay attention to. I ask you to consider the amount of sugar and salt that you consume every day. I simply ask you to consider. I also ask you to consider from this point of view the potential long-term impact adding additional salt and sugar to your diet, a part of your daily routine. And just consider the typical conditions that many members of our communities, and indeed other communities, but most certainly our communities, and when I say that, just to be clear, to avoid a misunderstanding, I'm of African Caribbean heritage, okay? But it is equally true of those of the continental African heritage, because we're all the same people, okay? And most certainly true of those from the Indian subcontinent. Yeah. Most certainly true of these communities here in Britain. We have abnormally high levels of diabetes and hypertension. Overconsumption of sugar has caused our production of insulin, or insulin become less effective. Become numb is a term generally used by the experts. Okay, so we're not processing sugar as we need to, we should, so that it doesn't become toxic to our bodies. And similarly for salt. And salt, of course, the hardening of the arteries make it far more difficult to pump blood around our bodies through our circulatory system. And the high increasing of our blood pressure as a consequence. So in the case of excessive amount of sugar in the body, diabetes is a typical condition, type 2 diabetes. And many of you I know will be familiar with that term because either an immediate family member or a friend or associate has now got the condition. And equally, hypertension or high blood pressure, again, it may not be as talked about as quite so much, but its prevalence is profound in our community. And these are fundamentally lifestyle conditions. Fundamentally lifestyle conditions. In other words, it's in our power, it's in our gift to change the outcome by simply reducing the amount of sugar and salt that we consume every day. I say reducing because in my case, it took 10 years, I know, 10 years before I stopped purchasing sugar from the grocery store. 10 years of gradual reduction. And that is an indication of the extent to which I was addicted to sugar. Yeah. That gives you an indication. So I get it. I understand many of our communities who find it difficult to control their sugar intake. I get it. I get it. I get it. There are certain techniques that I applied in order to reduce my psychological dependency on sugar. And remember, it is psychological. It's because of the chemical similarity between sugar that we're consuming and the chemicals in our brains. Yeah, it's that which it promotes addictiveness. So I get it. I get it. I say again, I get it. It is hard. It's difficult. But I urge you to seek help. Okay. In my case, I sought to help. In short, once I identified that to be a problem, I have members of my family with it. Okay. Once I identified those in my friends group with it, and occasionally I might encounter someone who's taking their medication who I don't know, but they've got it as well, diabetes, or taking pills for their hypertension, high blood pressure. We can and must avoid this if we can. It's within our gift. It is within our gift to ourselves to do so, to our loved ones to do so, yeah, to our community to do so. We've got the power to define our future. By our actions, we define our futures. So I urge you to consider the amount of sugar and salt that you consume on a daily basis. I also urge you to consider the amount of fat and carbohydrate that you consume on a daily basis. Okay. This is a challenging one, okay? Because fat primarily derives from meat products, yeah, either the consumption of meat or dairy products, which are indeed another form of meat products, but hardened fat. Cheese is just hardened fat, yeah? Butter is just not quite so hardened cow's fat. That's all it is, yeah? But we are taught as children to consume it, and we take the habit into our adulthood. And many, fine. But far too many succumb. Excessive amount of fat in our bodies, the clogging up of our arteries. Yeah, it manifests itself as cholesterol. Okay, and the carbohydrates, of course, which are primarily, in our case, derived from wheat-based products, primarily, and some root vegetables, but primarily wheat-based products. And we, of course, buy these products habitually every day, because that's what we taught as children, or indeed our parents would have had that as part of their cuisine. Okay, but of course we know what we do with these products is store them in our bodies. Okay, I mentioned the clogging up of our arteries, the raising of our cholesterol levels with fat. And many of you will be aware of either yourselves or your loved ones or your friends, networks, people with excessive amount of fat or cholesterol in their bodies. Okay. Or indeed the overconsumption of carbohydrates, I said primarily wheat-based products. Okay. And what happens? Our bodies store it because we eat far too much of it on a daily basis. And you see members of the community, indeed all communities, we're just human beings, huh? With their bloated shoulders, bloated abdomen, bloated thighs, bloated buttocks, yeah? And not walking, they're shuffling, okay? They're not exercising, and therefore the accumulation of weight continues. And we all know the effect of eating in excess, eating these products in ways which are not healthy for our body in the long term, that we slow down, yeah? We become less active, yeah? And of course, we reduce our immune response, yeah? In doing so, leave ourselves vulnerable to all the managers, the viruses, the bacteriums, and all the other things that exist in the atmosphere, yeah, in our environment. We can and we should. I suggest we will do better. Yeah, we will do better. And we work together. We can collectively ensure we are a much healthier community. Working together, supporting each other. If in doubt, of course, go to a professional, speak to your GP, speak to your doctor, speak to your nutritionist, yeah? Speak to the pharmacist, yeah? They're the trained professionals. I am providing but general guidance, yeah, as I've been trained to give. Okay. Another one of the products that we regularly consume is, of course, starch. Now, starch, of course, I can hear the Caribbeans, yeah? Rice and peas. I can hear the West Africans and the jollof rice. I can hear you now. The excessive consumption of rice. I know many of you have been doing it all your life. I realize. But what we do, we store, yeah? We convert it and store it in our bodies, okay? I said about the bloated abdomens and thighs and buttocks, okay? In the United States of America, can you believe it? 80% of African American women are overweight, or to use the technical term, obese. Here, in our case, it's just over 60%. Mhm. And of that number in the United States, 80% of that 80% are morbidly obese. In other words, they are dangerously obese to the extent that it's having serious health consequences now. We can and we must do better. Okay. All the professionals recommend, and again, don't take my word for it completely. Speak to professionals. I'm providing general guidance. The professionals recommend that we should eat far more fruits and vegetables, particularly green vegetables, but a broad range of vegetables. That's the recommendation. They encourage us to drink appropriate amount of water, between the 2 to 3 liters of water per day. It really does depend on your height and your body mass and so on. Again, seek out professional guidance. Don't take my word for it. I've got my water here. Yes, I've got it here. Let me shake it for you. Okay. In my case, I like water, but I like to put ginger in my water, you know. Get the raw ginger and put it in the water. Yep. Oh yeah, you know. And it's got many benefits, but that's for me. It suits me. You may have other natural items to add to your water to give it additional character and reason to drink it in the quantum is being suggested. But I've got to insist though, when taking this advice, you corroborate what I say. Okay, please corroborate. Seek a second opinion. Yeah. Okay. Because what is right for you may not be right for someone else. Okay. I'm providing but general advice. So more fruits and vegetables, particularly green vegetables. Okay. Appropriate amount of water, between 2 to 3 liters of water per day. And most critically, and I know some of you will understand this doesn't matter if you're not exercising. You have to exercise every day. I'm going to say it again. You must exercise every day. Far too many members of the community lead a rather sedentary lifestyle. There's little or no movement apart from the occasional walk here or there. Exercise is where you exercise, you stretch, and you flex all your muscles, not a few of the muscles which are involved in walking. Okay. So I want to encourage you, if you're not exercising, please do so. Go to a gym, if you can afford it, a personal trainer. Okay. But check your weight. Is your weight appropriate for your height and your gender? Okay. Too many women are heavier than men. You know that's clearly questionable, huh? Okay. So I don't want to get at anyone. I don't want to insult anyone. I don't want you to feel in any way embarrassed. Okay. These words are intended to encourage you to action. Remember, this is the Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action. And remember, success is ours for the taking. That's why it is important. Okay. Whole purpose of these shows to motivate you to action, self-improvement, self-actualization. Okay. Does that make sense? Please tell me if it doesn't make sense. And you can communicate with myself here in the studio. And if you are viewing this show via YouTube or Facebook, you've got the chat function. I'm just going to check it now. I see that someone's been sending messages. I'll just bring it up again. Yeah, I see you there. I won't say your name just yet, but I see you there. And thank you for those messages. Okay, send messages. I'd like to hear your messages. Affirmation. That if we are not our own change makers, who's going to effect change for us? Who's going to do it for us if we don't do it ourselves? Yeah? Why should we give responsibility to other people when we can take the responsibility for ourselves? Am I right? Am I right? Huh. I hear you. I hear you. We can and we must. We can and we must. It's simple as that. Yeah. We want you to be healthy. We want you to be happy, both physically and spiritually happy. Yeah. Seek out and obtain emotional contentment. But to do this, I suggest it is not the hyper individualistic approach where you just do it by yourself for yourself. You do it with others. I again say it, you do this with others. This is not just about you. It is about us. That's why these shows are here. But I hope those messages receive you well. And if in doubt, please seek out a professional. Seek out someone who's been appropriately trained and either got access to your medical records or is trained specifically in health, or is a trainer, a personal physicians, or someone with appropriate qualifications. Okay, it could be a natural herbalist, for example. They definitely understand the human physiology and what you need in order to maintain and build the human physiology, the body, if you like. But I hope these messages find you well, and I hope we've made a small contribution to your general health and well-being. Because there's one aspect of the general health and well-being that I've got to keep emphasizing, and there are certain listeners who I was reminded on this one, and that's, of course, to remember we must also take care not only of our bodies, but also our mental health and indeed our spiritual health. Okay, mental health is a big one in the community right now, primarily because of the impact of the current economic and social crisis that we are all exposed to. It's quite evident that members of our communities who are finding it difficult to cope. I say to you, please seek out professional advice. Okay, seek out professional guidance to promote and enhance your spiritual health. That's what I would encourage you to do. Seek out professional guidance, those you can trust or respect. That's what I encourage you to do. Okay. For myself, I meditate for at least 30 minutes per day. It is a powerful tool to focus one's mind, to be settled and push away all the trials and tribulations and distractions that we are all exposed to. Okay. And so you can focus and be determined in your efforts each day that you awaken. All right. Okay. Enough of that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your acknowledgement, because I believe that it has been a really interesting week. I'm not sure why I had quite so many positive responses last week. I'm not sure what I did differently, but it most certainly was resonating The words resonated with many of our listeners and viewers, and it's quite clear that they wanted to affirm that these words are the correct words, and this is the correct approach. This is the correct approach. All righty. Now then, let me now move on, because I'm now going to um, uh, talk about some of our past contributors. I want to do this because some of our contributors have been quite remarkable people, both men and women of stature. I say stature, there's ordinary people engage in extraordinary activities. In other words, an ordinary person can achieve extraordinary outcomes. Yeah, it's not for special people. You are special. I say it again. It's not for special people. You are special. Yeah, you are. Say it yourself. You are special. Yeah, ordinary people engage in extraordinary activities. Yeah, okay. It's important to say that, because often when I say this, there's an assumption that for someone to achieve some of the outcomes I've noted in the past, okay, they're different from the norm. No, that is not the case. That's some other propaganda from elsewhere. Actually, just ordinary men and women, yeah, girls and boys who care. As simple as that. They care. Yeah. And you know, I've got a weak point for young people who engage in these types of extraordinary activities. I'm particularly keen always to hear of young people's achievements, you know? I want to hear them, yeah? I don't mind if they're in infants or primary school, if they're in secondary school or universities. I like to hear of the achievements of young people, okay? Because that indicates their achievement, meaning that the roots are deeper. Our roots are deeper, and therefore our foundations are strong, are strengthening. And if our foundation strengthens, you see, it's a basis to move forward to the next generation. Yeah, that's what we need: deep foundations. Okay, and the efforts of others is, of course, to prevent this from happening. Mhm. And it does allude to the topic that I want to get on to later on in the show. But before doing that, I just want to give a big shout out to Dr. Carlton Brown for his presentation, which was received extremely well by you, the audience, and the world generally, it would seem. Okay. And his report, the Black Entrepreneurs Report of 2021, was a seminal document, a document that has greatly influenced my activities here in my local borough of Southwark and how I approach these issues of equality and opportunities. Yeah? Here in Southwark, we've got the Southwark Stands Together, which is a local branding of course, Black Lives Matter, and of course, promoting equalities for all. Okay? Truly commendable. I want to recognize Dr. Carlton Brown, and long may his work continue well into the future and be remembered by future generations. Yeah, long may that continue, and I think that's let's keep it up. Let's keep it up. I also want to acknowledge, well, I'm going to say his name this way, CK. Okay, I can hear you laughing now. What a show! Yeah, ordinary man, ordinary man, engaged in extraordinary activities. Just his will, yeah, his determination, his focus, his compassion, his empathy is what has assured him success. So he's established facilities for young people, okay, so they can focus their minds, their bodies around specific activity. In this case, the focus has allowed him to harness the potential amongst young people. Okay. In this case, it's bikes. You know, interesting. I used to ride a bike when I was a child. don't write them these days. Maybe I should. Anyway, never mind. And I've seen not a handful of young people go over to, in this case, a local public space, okay, called Burgess Park. And there you have the professional biking section in the park, primarily occupied by youngsters, school-age youngsters, and they're absolutely focused, okay? Absolutely focused. You see, when a youngster is able to focus to that extent, and they understand how to focus, that ability takes them across a school curriculum as well. They're able to study. They're able to cut off noise and distraction. They know how to do this. They've developed a technique using other methodologies. Yeah. That's what we need. We need parents, adults, to create facilities for young people, yeah, so they can focus and not be allowed to be distracted or persuaded by the more nefarious members of our community, or indeed other communities. That's what we do. That's the fight back, if you like. Yeah, part of the remedy to some of the youth activities that we've discussed in previous shows. So I want to commend CK, yeah, for his dedication to developing youth activities. And this is an appeal for all children, yeah, right across the social spectrum. Mm-hmm. He's very clear as to his position in the community and his purpose in the community. I commend you, CK. I commend you. I commend you. I also want to commend one of my regular guests, and that's, of course, Ndidi Ishowa. Okay. She's based in Nigeria. Okay. She was formerly here in the UK, formerly a police officer here in the UK, but of course, she's of Nigerian heritage. Okay. She's now in Nigeria and is committed there. But of course, a very honest, sometimes uncomfortable recital of what is happening in Nigeria, okay, I believe are commendable. Her reports, indeed articles, I would commend her articles to you as well. They are very, very thoughtful. Yeah, they are the articles that influence nations, redirect nations into different directions. And one of those which always sticks in my mind, because it was such an obvious piece of work, Africa's natural materials. And what she said was this: it is not Africa's raw material that matters, natural resources that matter. It's the technologies that derive from those natural resources, those raw materials. So selling your raw materials is stupid. What you've got to do is convert those raw materials to new technologies and thereby expand the wealth that is possible from those raw materials. Mm-hmm. That's powerful, truly powerful. Obvious. I was so obvious that I hadn't seen it. I hadn't appreciated it. But she's absolutely right. Yeah, Nigeria is sitting on oceans of oil. Okay, oceans of oil, and it sells the oil in its raw form. But it's only in more recent decades, in more recent years, is Nigeria refining its own oil. Can you believe that? So I want to say a big thumbs up to the Dakota family, yeah? Because they're building one of the world's, if not the world's largest oil refinery in Nigeria. Thumbs up to them, okay? I thumbs up to them. And indeed, if you are watching this program, this show, via YouTube or Facebook, please give us the thumbs up. I really would appreciate it because what it does, it gives us an affirmation. Now, what we're doing is right. Here we are, put up on the screen. There you go. There you are. The thumbs up. That's it. You can see it. The thumbs up. Please give us a thumbs up. Do the other one as well. There you are. You can see my face now. There you are. Give us the thumbs up or subscribe. No cost. It simply notifies you of the subjects of forthcoming shows. But of course, really important, share the links of our shows with others. Please do. It does help us. It really does help us. So what I'm going to do now, I'm now going to move on to the reason why this show's on. But before I begin, I want to acknowledge that my guest who I had planned for today, unfortunately, is not able to join us today. Okay, I did want to say that at the outset, and I'm sure it's for good reason, but nevertheless, I'm going to go ahead with the theme. And the theme for today's show is, of course, to look at the heirs of slavery. Mm-hmm. Those families who benefited financially, socially, from the enslavement of our ancestors. Okay. It is on very rare occasions. In fact, I'm not aware of ancestors, the heirs of slavery, to speak on a platform that is dominated by persons of African heritage. Very rarely does it happen, unfortunately. I believe it's overdue. So I was recommended to invite my guest. I don't need to call the person's name for this show, but nevertheless, to seek out an interview which would have been, despite the fact I have an English name, an interview that would have been respectful. Okay, because clearly, the particular family concern has been in Britain, I believe, since the 15th century. Okay? They're, of course, from continental Europe, most probably from the Netherlands or that area, but nevertheless. Okay? Like most of the ruling families here in Britain, the overwhelming majority of them are from continental Europe. The current ruling family in Britain is of course, from the European continent. Okay, so that's simply a fact. But they become British after a generation or so. Huh? It will happen to us. I'm British. Yeah. Yes, I'm of African heritage, but I still remain British. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to bring in my co-presenter, and then we're now going to have that dialogue on the heirs of slavery. Let's see if I can bring her in. Let's see if she's here. Here we go. Empress Abner.
Good morning.
Oh my gosh, I feel as if I haven't spoken to you for too long. There you are. Oh, there you are. Is that better?
Yeah, no, it's Eid celebration. I don't know. Eid seems to be continuing every week. It's killing me.
Oh, it was this weekend as well, is it?
No. Basically, we had an Eid party at the school because a predominantly number of our kids are Black and Muslim. So the school never had an Eid event before, so I decided to have an Eid event, and it went really, really well yesterday. So that was amazing. So the feedback I got from parents was great. So yeah, so had about 200 people.
But my Empress, I just wish that happened in every school across Britain. So the mystique that some religious leaders build around other religious leaders can be got away from. And Britain would be much stronger for it, I've got to say.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because a lot of this, obviously my school has like Easter egg hunts and Christmas lunch, and obviously the Muslim kids eat the lunch and they celebrate the Easter egg hunts. Obviously, it doesn't mean that they're not they don't believe in their faith, but it's part of the school. And some things you have to be part of. Our school's not a religious school; it's an inclusive school. But for me, I felt like the school is nearly half the population of the school is Muslim, and it's something that be done. And I thought it'd be something fun. The kids got to get henna, face painting. They got to wear their traditional clothes. I didn't get to wear mine because I was so busy running around and doing safeguarding. But other than that, it was a really nice event. And then obviously I had Eid last weekend. So I was at my sister's house and I was celebrating Eid on Friday and Saturday. So it's just been a nice kind of weekend, and now I can relax a bit, and get ready for my son's SATs now. I can focus on him. Yes. The next 2 weeks are about him. So yeah, and then he's going to secondary school. So
compassion is always it just keeps overflowing. Welcome anyway. It's good to see you.
How are you anyway?
Oh, I'm quite busy, but I'm very alert. I'm very alert. And I'm going through a number of interesting exercises to continue to strengthen both my body and mind. Okay,
that's called sleep. It's called sleep. The best exercise is called sleep.
No, you've got to study, exercise your brain, so it can expand, I can tell you.
You know whose books you should read and it expands your mind? Akala's books on race and relations. His books are, when I read his books, I was just like, oh my God.
Name?
Akala.
Oh,
I love his books, amongst other things. But I love his books.
Forgive me, audience, I'm laughing. But of course, I'm endeavoring if we get to get him on here. And oh my God, I'm not sure how my co-presenter will respond.
Well, I met him when I was 21, many, many years ago. So yeah.
Ooh, he made an impression, huh?
Yeah, he did. But anyway, we won't go there. Saturday morning is too early. It's too early for that. Too early. But yeah, the Motivate, when we have another event, I will definitely invite you to come down, because it would be nice to have local MPs. And I did invite Mattia to one of our events, but I don't think she could make it. So
right, okay. Thank you. I look forward to the invitation. Now, my Empress, of course, today's show is focused on the heirs of slavery. Okay, and I've just started the introduction for the audience. Okay, but the guest that was intended is not able to attend today, but we will arrange a future day. But I've nevertheless felt it's necessary to continue with the theme for today, because I want to make sure that we set the scene for when we have a representative come along. What is not fully understood often, and I mentioned earlier on that it's very rare that are the heirs of slavery, and I use that term deliberately. Okay, those families, individuals who benefited from the transatlantic slave trade. It raised for Britain billions of pounds 500 years ago. Those billions of pounds translate into many trillions of pounds today. Yeah. It gave Britain an economic boost that heralded, of course, the Industrial Revolution. But the families, their heirs, live today. And they of course, continue to experience the wealth that their ancestors accumulated those centuries ago. Okay. And many still have significant interest in our countries of Ghana, Nigeria, Jamaica, Trinidad, Zimbabwe. Mm-hmm. They still have significant financial interest in those countries. Okay. And therefore, there are a group of people that we should have lines of communications with. I mentioned a moment ago my interest that I have an English name. Not because my ancestors felt that it was appropriate to come to Europe and thereby take on a European name. It is one that was handed to us. We had no choice. My ancestors, of course, our ancestors indeed, were not allowed to speak our own language. Otherwise, our tongues would have been chopped out. Mhm. We were not able, of course, we were not able, of course, to practice our traditions, our culture. Yeah. And I believe that is really a powerful message to remember. I say powerful because of the long term implication that had for many people, many Africans, both those who are now abroad and those on the continent. Mhm. I know many on the continent believe that somehow they were insulated, but for heaven's sake, the same families still control Ghana and Nigeria. Mhm. Their presence, even though it's not high profile, is there and it is profound. And I'm absolutely certain that we need to have that dialogue. Okay, we discuss reparations or reparatory justice, as it were. Okay, it's part of a general narrative. Okay, of course, there's a recognition that um, if you don't come to terms with your past, how on earth can you build a certain future? Okay? All human beings have an innate right to the wealth that is possible in our technological age. I say that slowly because I want to ensure that those families and heirs of slavery, okay, hear the message of détente, if you like, the desire to communicate, okay, a desire to better understand their current circumstances, and if they are seeking means to communicate and support our efforts for restitution, then say so. We're happy for that. We're happy for that. But I was directed to the website, the Heirs of Slavery website. Okay. And I read through the details of this website. Okay. And I found it an interesting experience. And I have to be really frank with the audience. I want to be really frank with you because some of you know who I am. That my first instincts was to shout at my computer screen. That's what it was. That was my first instinct to shout, to roar. You ever heard a lion roar? To roar with the energies of my ancestors. That was my first instinct. And I did. I roared. Mhm. And I did. That was a powerful moment. Truly, truly moving moment. So once the roar had subsided, it is absolutely necessary for us as a community, as a people, of course, to remain focused on what we want to achieve and what our ambitions are for our children's children. And with that in mind, as being a parent myself, and all parents will recognize this, my empress, okay, you know how you feel inside, but you have clear purpose. Mhm. You've said it, my empress. The next few weeks, your son and his sats. Yeah, total commitment to your child. Yeah, total commitment. You said it without even hesitation. Yeah, fear or favor. Equally, when tackling this subject, we must be very clear what we do when we seek out reparatory justice, when we seek out and speak to those who are have been responsible for the condition we're in today. Yes, you can shout and you can scream at them. Yes, you can do all that. I prefer another approach. Okay. Because we need to talk. Because actually, we're family. True, huh? I know those of you from the Caribbean and the Americas and others will recognize what I've said. We're actually family. We're actually family. So, my Empress. So, what I'm going to do, and this has been an interesting exercise, I want to share with you what's on the Heirs of Slavery website. I want to commend these heirs for their courage. I know Britain. I know British people. I absolutely know English people. I know them. So this takes a particular type of courage to do what these, not many, but it's a start. To do what they're seeking to do takes courage. I want to encourage them to do so. So what I'm going to do is share the website details. I want the audience, and I will read it. I want the audience to see and hear what is on the website. Okay. So let me just prepare the way. And my Empress, okay, being of Ghanaian heritage, highly cultured people, okay. There's so much here that's for Ghana. There's so much here for Nigeria. So much here for Jamaica. There's so much here for the whole, all Africans who are in the diaspora and indeed on the continent. There's so much here. Okay. It is profound. So what I'm going to do, let's get that off for a moment. Let's see if my technology will work this time. Hopefully it will work, and let's see if I can get it up without any hassle. Would be nice, wouldn't it? There we go. I believe, have I got the right one? Got the right one. There we go. I'm going to bring it in now. Let's bring this in now. Okay, can you see the screen now, my Empress?
Yes.
You can. Oh, I believe we might have someone on the line. I haven't officially opened the line, but I'll take the call anyway, with number ending 7968. Good morning to you.
Yes, Grand Risings, Brother Martin.
Grand Rising to you indeed, my brethren. You want to... Yes.
I just wanted to... Sorry, I know the lines aren't open as of yet, but I just wanted to share some vital information, considering the topic that you're discussing. On Monday, an organization called Afford, a research organization, set up a meeting at the Houses of Commons, the House of Parliament,
okay,
which was chaired by Bel Ribeiro, one of our MP constituents, who I would say is we could probably have some level of trust of all of the MPs, given the fact that this sister, she actually came through the Saturday supplementary school.
She did.
So there is some level of understanding that she may not actually just be a tool for the oppressor, like the rest of the black MPs, mainly.
I don't want to say that. Please, could you just make your point? I'm not sure I want to go on that line. All the MPs are there for good reason. Yeah. Okay, but go on, please.
Yeah. Let me just. I know you're going to push back on that, but let me just express myself. Yeah.
You said it anyway.
Yeah. So at this meeting, which I'm surprised you didn't attend as well, given it was at House of Parliament and whatnot. But at this meeting, the Trevelyan family were there. And I was also there. Fortunately, I discussed it a little bit on Tuesday, but I was also there, thankfully, with our Nana Kweku, Nana Muduti Kweku. He joined as well, amongst a few other familiar faces, including Sister Esther Santa Kasei. So in this meeting, the key points, because John Trevelyan, who has been heading up this Heirs of Slavery, gave an account and gave us a backstory as to how and when and what had happened to get to the stage of forming this as a slavery. And all it was is I would just, pardon the pun, I would would air a calls for, caution, Brother Martin, because I hear you straight away say I need to give them their flowers. You want to praise them and tell,
no, I didn't say that.
We're
would
family
encourage them
and the courage that they
encourage.
And I respect your view, but I would just air a form of caution, because what became very apparent in that meeting by a consensus of people was very simply this: they are controlling their narrative. They are deciding that they want to give some form of reparation, mostly on their terms.
Indeed.
And mostly with the eye of the media spotlighted on them. They were all worried at the beginning. This is me just giving you the down drop of what John Trevelyan said. They were all worried at the beginning. They were oohing and ahhing. They wasn't too sure. They still have a number who are very much skeptical and furthermore absolutely against it. So it's not all of their family. And even more so in the joined up families that they have on the Heirs of Slavery website.
Yes.
Now, to be fair, the Heirs of Slavery website and what they're trying to do, fair enough. But I'll be cautious to be praising them and giving them, they're so courageous. Be mindful to do that, because it is on their terms.
Indeed.
And that what was said by most of the people that were in that room were explaining, look, great, well done, but this is on your terms, and you're getting a lot of media spotlight, which can suggest that you're doing this for show. So we had to be cautious with them. And we made that very clear in the meeting in the belly of the beast, which we call the House of Parliament. So I land with this, because I know you probably want me to go. I land with this. It's very, very clear that they made it very apparent that if we want to change that narrative and make sure that they're doing things correctly, then we need to reach out and make sure we're having that contact and that dialogue, which
absolutely,
I would agree with you.
Absolutely.
We're not trying to scream at them and shout at them, but we are trying to make sure that they do things properly without the boule and the bourgeois of black people going up in their camp and having afternoon tea with them and telling them how great they are because they've decided to give back a little bit or try to do something. We need the proper grassroots nation building, African-centered black people to make sure that they are putting their foot right in them to make sure they do this properly, and that we make an example out of this family and not make it an easy ride for them, but also make sure that we're being respectful and noble in our own accord, honoring our ancestors and making sure we conduct ourselves properly, but making sure that they do not control the narrative. They are not controlling the narrative. And the more we praise them, the more they will feel that they decide how and what form of reparation they're going to be given. So we need to be very, very mindful, and I'll land with that. But
excellent.
Respect, Brother
Thank
Martin,
you very much for the call. Thank you very much. I like it, Brother Nat. Keep it up, Brother Nat. And I know you know I am not naive. I know you know that. But that's okay. That's okay.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
All right, peace and love.
Bless up.
Take care.
Bless up. So there you go. And the caller there is again an expression identifying the incredible talent we have in the community. Okay, and of course, he's 100% right. And I would have made the same point myself, but it's okay. That the narrative, what actually happens, cannot be dictated by the beneficiaries of the enslavement of my ancestors. It cannot go so. It cannot be that way. But I nevertheless want to encourage them, because I know, and which Brother Nat didn't quite acknowledge, that to do what they're doing, to break ranks, if you like, is very courageous. very courageous. And I want to encourage other families to do the same. Yeah? I want to encourage other families to do the same. I know my brethren and others, okay, want to be very hard and bam, bam, and absolutely, okay. In my considered opinion, and I'm now going to refer to the Heirs of Slavery website, okay, for this group of individuals to break ranks, okay, is commendable. Okay, we must create a condition that other families can do the same. I'm a strategic thinker on these matters, okay, and so I recognise my grassroots heritage, okay, but in public life, I don't do this for show. I do this because we have no choice but to win, because our children's children depend upon our works. So we're going to move forward. So I've got it on the screen, the Heirs of Slavery website and the About Us. And I want to look at this website because I want to encourage the persons mentioned here to extend the courtesy, the respect to us, to be interviewed in a platform that is wholly managed and owned by persons of African heritage. The BBC is a wonderful organisation, but we don't control it. Yeah? Many of these private companies that I've seen members of this group on the screen are not owned by Africans. Okay? You may have been interviewed by an African person, but the ownership and management behind that person is not African. Okay? What we bring to the debate and dialogue is a flavour. A flavour that suggests that we want to achieve meaningful dialogue that achieves outcomes that are tangible. Yeah, that's what we want. Outcomes which are tangible, actually make a difference to people's lives. I'm going to read from what I see in front of me on the About Us page of the Heirs of Slavery website. So, and I'm going to note the language used. Okay, I said earlier on, my first engagement with this website, I was moved to raw, and raw. The raw was long, it was loud, and I can assure you, it was the raw of our ancestors. Okay, so what it says here is Richard Atkinson, paternal ancestors owned or managed numerous sugar estates in Jamaica. Their extensive business interest on the island included a long-standing government contract to hire labour up to 400 enslaved men to the British Army. Okay, of course, enslaved men meant, of course, our African ancestors. Our ancestors. And being someone who was born in Jamaica, it's quite probable that one or two of those men I could very well have been related to, or am related to. The next paragraph, John Dower and Laura Trevelyan, okay, that name was mentioned a moment ago, are descended from 6 Trevelyan's who in 1835 shared £29,000 as compensation for owning 1,004 enslaved Africans. I've inserted the word Africans. It says people here. Enslaved Africans on the island of Grenada. If I do some mathematics behind this, just check my mathematics again on this one, because it's really an important one to understand what's going on here in terms of the compensation levels. Okay, I note the vast majority of people in Britain were living in squalor, absolute squalor. Yeah. And many working class people here in Britain today who recall their grandparents and how they were living will testify. The vast majority of people lived in squalor here in Britain and were living on less than a penny per day. But this family was compensated to the tune of £29,000. That's pounds back in 1835. Now, I've got this wonderful ready reckoner, which is able to translate that value to today's value. And I'm told, using this ready reckoner, I'm going to do it right now, just to make sure, that in 1835, this family were paid using a really good exchange rate of £3.393 million. Can you imagine 3.93 million pounds? I pause because can you imagine being given that amount of money at that time? You could buy whole cities, yeah, whole highlands. Yeah? You could virtually buy anything you like with that amount of money. Imagine having that in your family trust, okay, and how it would have. Because I've simply translated that in today's money, okay. But if you put investments in using that money, how much what is the worth of that family today? Because trust me, they could employ the best financial wizards of the day and continue to employ them till today. Which is why the City of London is the City of London, because of the wealth of families such as this. Another family mentioned here are Charles Gladstones. Now note, Gladstones. 3 times great-grandfather John Gladstone owned sugar plantation in Jamaica and what is now Guyana, receiving £106,000 in compensation as abolition. John's son Williams became Prime Minister of Great Britain. Right. So the Gladstone, the Prime Minister of Britain, okay, well, we all know, yep, his family were and are an heirs of slavery family, an enslaver family. Yeah. Now let me do a quick translation of what that would equate to in approximate value today. If you receive where we go? We'll be in the 18th century. £106,000. It roughly translates, according to this ready reckoner. Let's just check this one now again. Yeah. It roughly translates to over £13 million. But £30 million in that time, the spending power is the equivalent to nearly, what, £1 trillion? You think about the cost of living and how the value of money has changed. We're talking upwards of £1 trillion. That is the spending power that was in that family. In that family today. Because they could buy everything they wanted. Whatever they wanted, they could buy. The best minds they could buy. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? The next one I've got here is Rosemary Harrison. 4 times a grandfather, was Jamaica's Attorney General. In the late 18th century, he owned enslaved people as servants. Okay? They don't specify here the compensation paid. A really interesting one, the next one here, is David Lascelles. Okay. Ancestors built Harewood House in Yorkshire. With the money made through the sugar trade and the slave trade that supported it. The Lascelles families, put the caller on the line, just mute your phone for a moment, please. The caller on the line, just mute your phone for a moment, please. The Lascelles families receive £26,309 in compensation in 1835. And after slavery was abolished, the Harewood House has been run as an educational charity since 1985. So the Lascelles family, okay, again, if I do a quick translation of roughly what the cost or the value will be in today's money, okay, but it doesn't reflect the spending power that they commanded back in 2 centuries ago, but nevertheless gives you some idea of the value. They received more than £3 million. Again, if you had £3 million in the 18th century, that's equivalent to billions of pounds in today's spending power. That's how wealthy the families became. Okay. And the last two very quickly are Alex Renton is descendant from owners of enslaved people or our ancestors, Africans, on both sides of his family. His maternal ancestors, the Fergusons, co-owned plantations and peoples, in other words, African peoples in Jamaica and Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago. They shared a compensation of £3,591 at abolition. And again, approximately, in terms of today's value, it is approximately, let me do this again, just over £1 million, just over £1 million in today's money. But £1 million in those days could go far further than it can today. So the spending power was overwhelming. Just to give you some idea, and this is but a few of the many aristocratic families in Britain, yeah, who became wealthy on enslavement of our ancestors. They have a message for us to share, I'm sure. Let me take this caller with number ending 9034. Good morning to you, caller.
Yeah, grand rising to you, the motivators.
Grand rising to you indeed.
Yes, Brother Akram, yeah.
Greetings.
Been a while since we've spoken. But yeah, just, it's a very interesting topic that you have brought up. And I was listening to it, and I was saying to myself, why do we continue constantly to be focusing on slavery? We have something which, to me, is more dear to my heart, is today and where we're going to be tomorrow. Why are we not focusing on what are we going to do to get out from this quagmire that we're in? The solution to coming out from this. I believe that this should be our main focus, and how we're going to move away from, and empower ourselves, right? And, you speak about the slavery. Now, we, our own people, are enslaving our people today. We had people in Jamaica.
I'm really sorry, Brother Akram. Brother Akram, I'm really sorry. Really sorry. I've taken the call, although I've not opened the phone line. I know we're not enslaving our own people. What is happening here is knowledge is being shared. We're now beginning to appreciate the incredible wealth that Britain earned from the enslavement of our ancestors that exists today and is impacting on our economies today. So, Brother Akram, I'm not going to take the call any further. I want to continue the show. I'm sorry, Brother Akram. I'm not going to take the call any further. I'm not going to take the call any further. But I will invite you to call back later on. But once I put the calls in the correct context. Okay. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. To cut yourself off from knowledge, okay, is in fact to castrate yourself. We're not in the business of castrating ourselves. We must face up to the truth. So, Brother Akram, thank you for the call. I'm going to let you go now.
Okay.
And I want to continue to focus on the show. Thank you, Brother Akram.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Not a problem.
Right.
Not a problem. So, I've said earlier on, notwithstanding Brother Nat's cautionary tone, which is spot on, of course, the issue of narrative and what is actually happening should not, I repeat, should not and must not and could not be dictated to the beneficiaries of the enslavement of our ancestors. Oh, that's clear enough. And I'm not typically identified as being a person of weak will on such matters. Now we've got an indication of the incredible wealth of a handful, not a handful of families. And there are, a few hundred families out there, okay, who are living off the enslavement of our ancestors, okay. We now have an appreciation of the task in hand. So notwithstanding comments made already, I want to encourage these family members to continue to speak up. That's what I want to do. I want to encourage them to speak up, to speak out. I heard David Lascelles, who is the 8th Earl of Harewood House in Yorkshire, okay, express on a TV interview that he was ashamed. He was ashamed. And look, I know English people. I say again, I know English people. And for an Englishman to say that, okay, with all the pride and dignity that they carry around with themselves, I want to commend him for saying what is morally right. He was ashamed. I hope either he or others might allow an interview to take place. Okay. Because we need to talk. We need to talk. Yeah. And if this is a sincere effort, if it is a sincere effort to make amends, then we should encourage them, help them. Okay? Because they're surrounded by cadres of families who have no empathy, who are sociopaths, yeah, who have absolutely no soul. Let me assure you, I've encountered them. Yeah? So for these few courageous ones, okay, we will help you. We will help you, okay? And whilst it is difficult to forgive, let me make it clear, yeah? And we're not going to forget, it doesn't mean we can't work with you to create a better world for our children's children. Okay? I think that's the real message I want to get across. Yeah? Because I don't believe any one of these individuals, yeah? As I said, I've mentioned David Lascelles, I've seen the more recent interview, okay, which I can't play for copyright reason, I'm really sorry. Okay. Express, I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. Yeah. Yeah. All the privileges I have is because of what my ancestors did. Yeah. we need to encourage them. Okay, we need to encourage them to be stronger. Okay, when they're surrounded by hostile families who honestly believe that the domination of another people's is simply the right thing to do. Civilization can go to hell. We're just got to dominate, be autocrats. Mhm. And in that hostile environment, to find these courageous Englishmen and women prepared to stand up and speak up, I wish to commend them. Okay? But the dialogue must be equal. The dialogue must be meaningful. The dialogue should not disgrace, should not in any way disgrace the memories of our ancestors. The dialogue should, of course, be founded in the sense that we can make a difference together. But we are not junior partners in this dialogue. I need to make that clear. So this is a powerful message, a message to those individuals who hold sway over big corporations which are in Africa and the Caribbean right now, earning incredible profit for themselves and sharing very little with the country's concern. Let's see a change in that relationship. Yeah, that's the biggest problem with Africa and the Caribbean. Big corporations, not the government, the big corporations are the big problem. Big corporations living off the assets of these enslaved families. So I ask you all, yes, we can be mad. Yes, we should shout. I've shared with you my roar. It lasted more than 15 minutes. Can you imagine? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That was something. Let me tell you. That was something. So let's be clear. Change is absolutely necessary. And change will happen. Change will happen. And change for the better, I might add. But we've got to always anticipate that the mad ones, the psychopaths, sociopaths that are leading many of the British families, English families, Scottish families, a few Scots there, okay? They will push back because they want the old status quo to remain. So I want to continue to encourage those names mentioned here on the Heirs of Slavery website and others who are not mentioned, who I'm sure of in far greater numbers that are quoted for good strategic reasons. I understand it. Okay. I want to encourage you to continue with your work. And in doing that, what I also note is that the Heirs of Slavery, I'm going to take off the sharing for the moment for this page. There you are, my Empress. You've been very quiet there, my Empress. I know you've been working. Don't worry. I did want to say this, that as we now progress, okay, I know that callers, I'm going to open the line now in a moment, callers really just want to vent. And whilst I want to hear the venting, I want to hear that, okay? What I really want is for us to think about how we could encourage other aristocratic families, yeah? Those families of the landed gentry, they call them here in Britain, okay? So-called blue blood, because, Tories, sorry.
Can I say something though, but aren't they allowed, to some degree, I think venting is a good thing if it comes from a good place. And I just feel some people do feel, that something has been taken away from them, or they don't feel they're in a position that they should be because of certain things that happen. So I don't think these callers are doing it to knock everything about the system. I just think there's certain aspects where they're angry and they feel they want to express that. And I feel sometimes they are not allowed to express that in other places. And this platform may be a healthy place for them to express it in a positive but inspiring way. That's the best way I can put it. Yeah.
Thank you, my Empress. Always listen to the women, gentlemen. Always listen to the women. Huh?
About that, but yeah.
I'm
We're
going
not
to
going to go there this morning either.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm going to open the phone line. Don't you worry. I'm going to open the phone line. Let's get the caption up. Where's the caption? There we go. Get the right. There we go. There you go. So, if you wish to enter this debate, and I again apologise right at the beginning, the guest isn't here on this occasion, but nevertheless, we're going to continue discussing this subject because it's opened my eyes as to the incredible wealth Britain earned from the enslavement of our ancestors. Billions and trillions, forgive me, trillions and trillions of pounds was earned by look at today's money, and the families that most probably earn the most. I'm obliged to say this. It is highly likely that the ruling family of this country, okay, is received the greatest wealth. It is highly likely. I don't have the evidence, but it's highly likely because at every tour across the Atlantic, it was always in the name of the monarch, the then monarch. And the then monarch exists today, as will be testified next weekend. Anyway, let me just open the phone. If you wish to call, we want to hear your views on this subject, and we will continue to debate and dialogue on the subject, and we'll encourage a representative of the Heirs of Slavery organization either to speak on behalf of the organization or in their own capacity, okay? But we will be respectful, because we are, of course, people of African heritage. So, the telephone number to call, if you're in the UK, is 0208 133 5616. I repeat, if you're in the UK, it's 0208 133 5616. If you're overseas, it's +44. You take off the first zero, then becomes 208 133 5616. Hope that wasn't too fast. But of course, you can send questions or contribute to the dialogue via the chat on YouTube and Facebook. You can find us being transmitting live under the Motivator Show. DE space Motivator Show. Love to hear from you. The phone lines are now open. I know I've taken a few calls, but they're now officially open, and I want to now have that real dialogue. My Empress is smiling. This is good. I like it when she smiles. What I'm going to do, if I may, I've still got I've still got a call on the line, have I? 9034. Brother Akram, still, is it?
I'm still here. Yeah.
You are still there. Okay. Now, Brother Akram, let's deal with your issue which you raised. If I may, what I really want to do before you come in is really focus not on what we did to ourselves and so on, which we can discuss at some other time. I want to focus on the British families, English, Scotch, Welsh, and Irish families, that were ultimately responsible for financing the transatlantic trade, slave trade, and continue to benefit from that trade today to the tunes of tens of trillions of pounds. That's what I want to focus on. Can you do that for us? Can you just focus on that and think about what dialogue we want to have with such people so that the reparatory justice, which is the essence of why the show is being conducted today, can take place? Over to you, Brother Akram.
Yeah, okay. Well, one you mentioned about the monarchy, who was being implicit on the head of state of Britain and France and all these places that has been implicit in the benefits of the slave trade. Now, one of the things which I'd like to ask you as an MP, and can correct me if I'm wrong. When our lands became independent, what was the agreement? What reparations that we had to pay to the monarchy or to the British government for them to release our lands for us to become independent, right? We hear about France having 5 billion a year, but we never seem to hear about what Britain is reaping from the freeing of those lands to our people. How much is Britain collecting year upon year, right, for the purpose of giving us the freedom for our independence? What reparations are we paying to them constantly every year?
Mm-hmm. I must say, I can't answer that question
I know
myself,
the
but if there is another listener...
doing that because America had to pay reparations to Britain when they became independent from Britain. So, and I think that was paid off maybe a few years ago. But what has the other countries, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, Nigeria, and all these places, what is the reparation that they've had to pay to the United Kingdom for their freedom from...
Okay, we can put the call out for that answer that question. But what about the issue of those members of these uber rich families who've got history of living off our ancestors' labor? What's your opinion when you see a number of them for the very first time speaking about the fact that they are extremely rich because of the enslavement of our ancestors? What do you think the dialogue should... how would you gauge such a dialogue if we were to engage with them? What should we be doing with them? Tell me, how would you engage with them yourself?
Well, first of all, because as you rightly said earlier, they still own lands and properties and corporations within our lands,
yes,
and which they're still benefiting from. Now, first of all, for them to release those lands, right, and release those cooperative corporations and so forth back to the people, so that the people of those countries can be beneficiaries of whatever is coming from those lands.
Okay.
Because they are still taking a vast amount of money, so every day we are speaking, they are still bleeding us, so what kind of compensation can they really give us, or what kind of compensation that we would really want from them in order to be able to say, well, okay, you are paying us back for all of those years. And first of all, the first step would be to release those companies and corporations that they have in our land.
Okay.
And, like in Tanzania, for instance, when Tanzania became independent, it took away all the lands and closed down all the mines and other things like that. And that is what is needed to be done by many of the African countries and countries in the Caribbean, to close those countries down, those corporations down, and give it back to the people.
Okay. That's a strategy. Okay. What about, for example, in my sort of other sphere of activities, I'm very conscious that with each generation, you've got to make sure you are trained in the latest techniques, latest technologies, so you can continue to generate wealth. Okay. What would you say that that these families contribute to a skills fund? Okay, maybe $1 trillion or multi-billion-dollar skills fund to train peoples of African heritage, either on the continental Caribbean or other places. Okay, across the range of skills necessary to run an economy. What would you talk about? What would you say to investing in people, building up their skills? If they lack the basic education, to invest in their education so they can then go on to take those skills courses. What do you suggest to that idea? Establishing a skills fund. What about that?
Well, I have mentioned that before some time ago, and it was sort of rejected. And in the case, because I'm asking the question of reparation, yes, right? How? Because there's so many millions of us, right? I mean, if they decided to give reparations or give the money and so forth. Who will get that money and who will benefit?
Well,
and I
again, forgive me, my brethren. Sorry, my brethren, if I may, I'm being very careful in putting specific questions to you. You're going on to what if and who would. I want to avoid all that because those are circular conversations to which there's no answer. So I put something very, very specific to you and seeking your response. And maybe you can elaborate. If such a fund was established to invest in people, what do you think would the likely economic impact would have on Africa, the Caribbean, or other places where we reside? Tell us.
Well, that is exactly what I'm saying. I said that I mentioned that to be investing in education, right, is where the majority of the people would have some benefit. Absolutely. Which is what you're pointing out. Okay, that's what I'm saying. That many years ago I did speak about it on the same radio. That this is an idea that would happen as a way of giving back to the people, right? So that majority of the people will then have some benefit by funding the education in all of these countries, free education for all the children for the next 25, 30 years, right?
I suspect it would have to be for a few centuries.
Of doing that.
Forgive me, my brethren. I suspect it would have to be for a few centuries. They've been sitting on the money for hundreds of years. It's accumulated incredible interest over that time. The wealth that they have runs into trillions. It doesn't need to be 25 years. It's going to be for the next 100 years, I would suggest. But what I'm going to do, if I may, but I appreciate your call. I'm going to let you go now. I'm feeling I see that for some reason your number is blocking other numbers getting through for some reason. So I'm going to let you go now. And I'm going to express my appreciation for your contribution. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you. All righty. So hopefully the others can get through now. There you go. The line is freed up somewhat now. So now we begin that genuine discussion, and it is interesting what happened in the House of Parliament and in meeting with Lord Trevelyan and others at the House of Parliament. And I'm very conscious that in meeting such people, without a firm plan, we become vulnerable to manipulation. I don't believe in engaging such people from positions which they could suggest is not a position of strength. We want to do this sort of thing from a position of strength. Okay. So it's pretty clear now as we have this dialogue. Empress, I've not heard from you a little bit now, but what's your view of what you've heard so far?
About everything that's going on? Do you know, I think for me personally, it's a hard topic to discuss because everyone has their own point of views. Obviously, I haven't experienced it. I don't know what my ancestors went through, and I know there's some countries in Africa that wasn't colonized, so they, like Liberia and Ethiopia, so they would never understand the struggles of the Caribbean, the other African countries that have experienced being colonized and the money that is owed to them. But to be honest, I wouldn't want their money. They could keep their money. That's just me. Do you understand? That's just me. Because at the end of the day, what good is going to come from it? Because then they might turn it around and say something else, that we're hungry, we're greedy, we want the money. I just feel like, we should just be able to move on with our lives and just be able to be greater and stronger so these things don't happen again. That's just my stance on it. But I guess it's a personal issue for those whose families it's happened to. But for me personally, if they wanted, they always want something from us. So why are we still trying to give them that hold over us?
It is interesting, and thank you for that. I can't recall if your primary education was in this country or Ghana. I don't recall your.
My education was here, but I think for me personally, because I have very great family and a great network. They've always sourced, and I was an avid reader anyway. I've always gone to the library and I never read the books that everyone traditionally read. I was always in the Black section of the library and reading the books from there. I've always known about, and I've always, when people look to famous people to be their role models, mine were always people from my culture or people that I could feel I could resonate with. And I've always said it, one of the great peoples was, I'm very interested in Mansa Musa, Yas Bantiwa, Jesse Jackson, those kind of people I resonate with. I don't feel like I can resonate with anybody else. And I think that makes me a bit different from the friends that I do hang around with. They're very interested in certain things, but my history means a lot. My culture means a lot to me. So, even though I've had education here, school is not the only place you can be educated. It's home, your personal interest. So that's just for me personally.
All right. In that case, what I want to do in that case is just go to another part of the Heirs of Slavery website, because this is an interesting aspect of it, which when I looked at it, I was again, I suppose I am impressed. I'm impressed, but I'll explain why I kind of, I'll explain in a second. There you go. I'm not sure. Can you see the screen now? Yep. So, as far as their website, there's a section called Repair. Okay. And I'm going to read this for those of you who are on audio only, and it's interesting. And he says as follows: as our purpose statement explains, we support movement for reconciliation and reparative justice. See the CARICOM 10-point plan for reparatory justice for information on the Caribbean nation approach to European government. And the CARICOM 10-point plan I'll put up on the screen later on. Okay. But members of this group and their families are supporting educational, cultural, and other organizations in Caribbean countries and the UK. And they then go to say, please contact us with any suggestions. Okay, so if they're inviting you to contact them if you want their support, and they'll then consider it. Okay, as I said, the wealth they're sitting on, anyway. Next one, it goes on. Anti-Slavery International continue to work for the regional abolitionists, campaigning for freedom from slavery for anyone, everywhere, always. Okay, so they're supporting the Anti-Slavery International. Black Cultural Archives is an archive based in Brixton here in London, whose mission is to collect, preserve, and celebrate the histories of people of Africa and the Caribbean descendants in the UK. So they are, I'm assuming, financially contributing. Now, I find that kind of profound for reasons those of my community would understand. I don't need to explain further, I don't believe. Okay. Anyway, I'll go on. The Centre for the Slavery of the Legacies of British Slavery, a centre which I'm familiar with, based in the University College London, is the UK's foremost public history centre for research on the history of slavery and its aftermath. Okay, so this is where the PhDs are earned, studying the enslavement of Africans. This is the University College London. They're their principal research centre. That's where you go if you really want to understand the family trees of these current enslaver families. I say current enslaver families, because it's difficult to say otherwise if they've not sought restitution from the families that they have financially gained from. But I'll go on. Next one is the Chapeltown Youth Development Centre in Leeds, England, provides opportunities for young people to participate in a range of sports, self-development and educational activities. Again, I presume that they are making financial contributions. I don't know how much, they don't indicate how much, but I'd be interested to understand what the amount might be on this one. Okay. The College of Agriculture, Science and Education is at the forefront of higher education in Jamaica, particularly in the area of agriculture and scientific innovation. Again, another contribution. So in each case, I won't read them all out now, but in each case, they're making financial contributions. And this is their means for restitution. Okay. I don't know how much they contribute at this stage. I don't know the percentage of their incredible wealth they commit to this. Okay. Is it 1% or is it 10%? Is it 10% or is it 50%? I don't know at this stage. Um, I, I think it's clear to many of us that uh, we want you to continue to do what you're doing. We want the financial contribution, notwithstanding my co-presenter's contribution. Okay, if you have the wealth accumulated as a result of enslavement of her ancestors, my ancestors, and you wish to share some of that wealth and to support our organizations, I wish to encourage that behavior. I wish to encourage it. Okay? I'm going to stop there on this sharing for the moment. And let's go back. Here we go. That gives you an indication. And I think, Empress, I think that's fair, isn't it? That if they are making these financial contributions, we wish to encourage them to continue to do so. Would you agree?
I do agree to some degree, but I just think maybe I've just got a laid back approach to certain things, and maybe I'm not as passionate, but I just think there are other things at a low level that we need to really deal with than certain other things, and I think that's just me. That's the best point I can put across. And one of the listeners said it's not about money. One of them quoted a quote from Frederick Douglass, and I get that, but we fought a lot of fights, and how much have we got out of it, if that makes sense? So for me, I think, like I say to the children in my school, there's battles that we need to pick, and certain battles there's some battles that we just don't need to pick. That's just my stance on it.
I understand you. I do understand. Don't worry. I do, and I understand what you're saying. I think as we now develop the discussion, we're almost out of time, but let's develop this discussion, and we will return to this. It becomes emotive because the opportunity to have direct dialogue with members of his family has been so rare, very rare. Okay, which is why I've said earlier, and I'll continue to say it, I commend these members of these individuals, okay, for at least putting their heads above the parapet. Because I'm very familiar with English people, Scottish, Welsh people, Irish people. There are far too many of them who have no compassion, no empathy, who display psychotic behavior. Yeah? Far too many. So this takes a certain courage, and I want to note the courage. I want to encourage others who are on the sidelines and not yet sure what to make themselves known. Okay, I wish them to come out of the shade so that we could see you and we could commend you, shake your hands and commend you coming out. Okay, and if you are able to aid and abet our social and economic development, okay, so that Africa can now reclaim its rightful place as a continent with 53, 54 countries, it can claim its rightful place in the international sphere, then we welcome your support. I note, for example, that Jamaica was given so-called independence. Still the same monarch, mind you. It got a governor general, mind you, who can override the the laws of Jamaica. Okay. By the way, okay. The Chancellor of Jamaica at the time noted that the British government emptied the coffers. Jamaica had no money on its so-called Independence Day. So the first job of the Chancellor at the time was to go to the IMF and World Bank for loans, which is why Jamaica is so heavily indebted, because Britain took all the wealth out of the country when it became so-called independent. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And Britain, of course, through the Governor General, Therefore, the monarch has the ability to override Jamaican laws. Yeah. Can you imagine? Oh, incredible situation. Anyway, harp on that one for the moment. I'm going to come back to where we are. So, in identifying this as a important milestone, I want to give a big shout out to Esther Stanford. I don't often I'm able to say that on here. A big milestone to her because she is clearly kept the fire burning and kept a good cadre of people around herself to continue to focus on reparations, meaningful reparations. And notwithstanding my co-presenter's words, okay, if you have a friend who's worth trillions of dollars, trillions of pounds, let's keep them as our friend. And we can encourage them to contribute to your development. I can see no reason why not. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's say this in conclusion on this subject, then we'll then have to move on to other subjects. I did want to tackle it this way. That we will return to this subject, and I will hopefully secure a guest in not too distant future, a member of the families who feels courageous enough to speak to Africans in a African environment. Okay, as opposed to the House of Commons, which is not an African environment. Okay, I'd like to invite them to join us here. Okay, and let's speak. Let's have this discussion. Let's have genuine dialogue. Okay, let's have genuine dialogue. Only through dialogue can there be change, and change is sorely desired. Okay, it's overdue, long overdue, long overdue. All righty. There you are, my Empress. I hope that meets with your satisfaction.
It did. I think I need to read about it a bit more because, I know a lot more about Africa. I don't know really much about what's happened in the Caribbean in terms of the reparations. But for me personally, I could talk about all the things that have happened in Africa, and people would turn a blind eye to it, like stuff that's happening in Sudan. And because we're Black and because we're Muslims, things don't work out for us. No one says anything, or what happens in Palestine, or what happened to Gaddafi in Libya. And I'm not saying it's all the same thing, but there's injustice everywhere, and people pick and choose what injustice they want to fight for.
I hear you. I think you mentioned Sudan. Maybe show for the next few weeks. Let's get a spokesperson who can bring us up to date on what's happening in Sudan. That will be very helpful. Huh? Let's get that organised for May.
May's on Monday. May's on Monday.
Oh, in May. I say May. Yeah, indeed. May. All right. I think that's right. And we've had a guest, really impressive guest, who spoke about the culture, wonderful cultures in Sudan. But I agree with you. I lament what I see there. It is heart wrenching. It is hard.
You've got North Sudan and you've got South Sudan. So you've got one part I think is mostly populated by Muslims and one part that's populated by African Sudanese who are more Christians. But Allahu Alam, what happens? I just feel like we as a people, even us as a Black African community, we pick and choose the injustices we want to fight for. We have Black men that degrade Black women. I could just go on about the things, the subsections of what we have as injustice and we don't fight for. So I don't know.
I'm not going to take that particular debate. I heard what you said, but I'm not going to take that.
Yes.
I'm not going to debate.
There's a lot of debates that you don't take, but I'm not going to even go there either. But I do think like there's certain injustices that we take at a low level, at a medium level, and at a big level, and it's sad, but we can't. It's just something that is part of life.
We're just human beings. That's true. That's right. But with respect, though, that you and we're going to tackle some really heavy subjects over the next weeks and months. Okay, Sudan will be one. Relationships is another watch this space. People.
Oh no, I won't be there. I don't know if I want to be there for this one. No.
Oh yeah, we're going to discuss relationships. Oh yeah.
Who's going to discuss that with us? God help them.
Oh yeah. And I'll be praying indeed. We're definitely going to do that. Okay, so that's another interesting subject for.
There should be another discussion about single mothers and single women. What are we really? Single mothers or single women? That should be a great discussion.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I'm going to make a note of that. What you just said there. Are we single mothers or are we single women? Okay, interesting, huh? Okay, that I know has already got. I can see a few high buys have gone up already with that comment. I hear you on that. Okay, I want to continue our entrepreneurs themes as well, developing our business and speaking to our business communities. Okay, I think that's another.
So why don't you just have an event where you get all these businesses to come together and just do an event where they can come together and get young people? Because I know in the Brandon estate, a lot of kids want to be entrepreneurs. So why don't you do that as a pilot in the Brandon estate and get that going?
Oh, now you're talking. Huh? Now you're talking.
Just saying.
You don't know what we are doing on the Brandon.
I don't know what you're doing, but you know, Suffolk teachers saying they're doing a lot, and I don't really see it. So I'm not going there in it. I'm not gonna go there with Suffolk. But, yeah.
I know. But it's unfair. Most listeners don't know the Brandon estate where it is. But it's okay. We'll return to it.
The South London Camberwell people.
We want to definitely give promotion to our work there. Most certainly. I want to talk about health, continue to talk about health and different aspects of health. And it's likely that next week will be a health program, specifically men's health. I think I've noted I've had numerous shows on women's health in one way or another, but none on men's health, which is curious. So we're going to do a show on men's health and possibly
cancer, IBD, strokes. What area are we looking at?
Oh, okay.
Bloods.
Don't worry. If you're not in receipt of our early media, okay, what I recommend that you do is go to YouTube or Facebook, and if you press the subscribe button, what it will do then is that the details of the next show will be revealed to you in advance. Okay, but remember, if you view this on YouTube or Facebook, give us the affirmation. You know, give us the thumbs up. You see that thumbs up, the like. Yeah, yeah. Don't forget to subscribe. Okay, so we can receive notifications, and of course, share links of this show with your family, friends, and others. Okay, please do, because it most certainly helps us to keep going. And I think lastly, we're almost out of time. I said earlier on that in order for these shows to be meaningful, okay, you the listeners, you the viewers, must be prepared to make changes. Okay, and if in doubt, seek help, seek support. Okay, let's continue to build our communities. Okay, ensure it remains healthy. Okay, remains healthy both physically, mentally, spiritually. Okay, let's ensure that no child is without love. Let's ensure our elderly are taken care of, that we look into them, look after them. Okay, so they don't sit there by themselves, die alone. And remember, above all else, ensure you take care of yourselves, for yourselves. Yeah, for yourself. I think that's right. Okay? So this is the Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action, and where success is ours for the taking. Okay. So please, all of you, be good to yourself. Be good to yourself. don't forget that the world is your oyster. Until the next strong, I remain the motivator. Empress?
Peace out, people. Have a great bank holiday weekend.
Take care, my people. Take care. Take care. Until the next strong. Praise be. Praise be. There you go. All right. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy yourselves.